The promise was simple, almost sacred, silence in exchange for peace, but just 6 days later, that silence didn't just crack, it exploded into headlines that many believe were never meant to stay hidden in the first place.
Meghan Markle breaks her agreement with King Charles and Buckingham Palace to leak to her friends at People magazine less than a week after that promised meeting with Charles and Queen Camilla.
She has been honored, just today we find out, by the Emmys with a daytime Emmy nod for that hideous Netflix show she did.
I just don't see those as bad traits. What I see is somebody very organized who knows what they want to do and also wants to get on with it.
Prince Harry is apparently upset with Elton John because they were all in this lawsuit against the Daily Mail UK.
She certainly knows that she's in a far more invidious position than she would have hoped to be in.
Meanwhile, Prince Harry has arrived back in the United States, completely fine, proving the point that I have made, by the way, for months and years, that they can travel in and out of the UK with their children private.
Just 6 days. That was all it took before everything that was supposed to remain behind closed doors suddenly felt like it had spilled into the public domain. No briefings, no leaks, no quiet nudges to shape the narrative. That was reportedly the understanding with King Charles, a fragile agreement built on restraint. But then, out of nowhere, a glossy People magazine cover appeared, and with it, a storyline that didn't feel accidental. It felt placed, deliberate, almost too precise. Because when you really look at that cover, when you read between those carefully polished lines, one question begins to echo louder than everything else. Who actually wanted this story told? The headline promised a reunion. Harry's royal reunion at last. But inside, something far more complicated. A difficult visit, a painful loss, a long-awaited meeting with King Charles, and woven quietly through it all, Meghan and the children, positioned almost like emotional anchors in a story that kept shifting shape. At first glance, it feels sympathetic, but then you start noticing the gaps, the contradictions, the timing.
From that People magazine cover, they couldn't hold their silence. What they had told King Charles was a lie, because look at that. Harry's royal reunion at last. His family visit Charles as new drama unfolds inside Prince Harry's turbulent UK visit, from a public palace dispute to a crushing court loss to a long-awaited reunion with King Charles alongside Meghan, Archie and Lily, directly contravenes what Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had agreed with the palace, which was that there was to be no briefing around this visit to try and shape the narrative in favour of one party. But she can't help herself, can she? So this is the cover report where People says the Duchess planned to be by her husband's side for several outings. However, there was an about face when security concerns prevented her and their 2 children from a full visit to Harry's home country. Now, again, this is totally intellectually dishonest reporting from People magazine. There's been no about face. Nothing has changed. Like, they got the security that has already been agreed. So no about face. Just
because suddenly the narrative pivots. We're told there was no dramatic change of plans, and yet somehow there was. Meghan and the children were expected. Then they weren't. Security concerns were blamed, but nothing about the security had actually changed. Same arrangements, same conditions, no sudden threat, no escalation. So why did the story insist there was a last-minute reversal? Why frame it like a twist when the facts don't show one? And then comes the emotional layer. The carefully placed quotes. Meghan would have felt deeply humiliated. There was genuine sadness. The week was painful. It sounds raw, personal, almost vulnerable. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the tone shifts just enough to guide sympathy in one direction while quietly redirecting responsibility away from another.
That Prince Harry has in the past directly emailed People magazine. We know that People magazine effectively operates as like the house journal for the Sussexes. And we know that Meghan Markle wanted it to be known to the world that the choreography of this meeting was nothing to do with her. Look at the headline. Meghan Markle always lets Prince Harry lead when it comes to the royal family. There's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side throughout the visit. That she would have felt humiliated. Oh, poor Meghan. Humiliated watching the public back and forth unfold. Another source tells people Meghan is very supportive of Harry, adding there's a lot of sadness over how the week unfolded and that she wasn't able to be by his side. However, another insider adds when it comes to Harry's dealings with his family, she always lets him lead. Behind the scenes, the drama surrounding the visit was quite stressful.
One sentence. Just one. She always lets him lead. It sounds innocent, supportive even. But critics didn't hear innocence. They heard strategy, because that line doesn't just describe, it distances. It separates Meghan from decisions she was reportedly part of. It reframes involvement into passivity, and suddenly, the entire narrative starts to feel less like reporting and more like positioning. Now step back, look at the platform, People magazine, not just any publication, a place where Prince Harry has reportedly communicated directly before. Not through layers of palace formality, but personally, a place many commentators already view as sympathetic territory. So, when multiple unnamed sources, close to the couple, insiders, people who know them well, start echoing the same emotional narrative, the same framing, the same carefully softened edges, is it really coincidence or is it coordination?
Well, I think that'll probably be a big issue for them because they do love a controversy because it boosts their brand, it boosts their numbers. But the reality is, you summed it up brilliantly in that intro, but you know, this has been a fiasco, it's been a circus, but actually, has it really hit anybody? You know, I thought actually it was quite, after all the toing and froing, it was quite low key. That the bigger picture was on Wowsies and them at Wimbledon and William playing polo.
Writing Prince Harry, the bonehead who sinks millions into failed privacy actions and who says camera flashes terrify him, is now doing cheesy, have you got my best side, guys? Camera turns at celebrity galas like he's Meghan Markle's sugar lump veneers. Hypocritical old ham. And indeed, he was loving this event so much overnight that he even praised.
Because critics didn't hold back. They pointed out contradictions that felt impossible to ignore. A man who spoke openly about trauma from camera flashes now smiling into them, engaging, even enjoying the attention. The same week, a narrative of distress was being built elsewhere. Two realities, playing out side by side, and neither one fully aligning with the other. And then comes the part that shifts everything from personal drama into something much bigger. Because the palace, according to many observers, made one request: keep it private, no public briefings, no narrative shaping, just quiet. And yet, within days, the silence was replaced by headlines. Carefully worded, strategically emotional, public. But the deeper twist? It wasn't even the most explosive detail buried in that magazine. Because while the story was building sympathy on one side, it was quietly setting the stage for something else entirely. Something involving Prince William that would make the entire situation feel less like a misunderstanding and more like a calculated move. Before that, though, something else happened. Something visual, something impossible to ignore.
I just don't see those as bad traits. What I see is somebody very organised who knows what they want to do and also wants to get on with it. You know, part of the thing about being the monarchy in waiting as it is that when you look at, say, His Majesty the King, King Charles, you know, he had a long time, but you can't do much because it's a constraint. You know, you've got the monarch at the top, which was his mum, the Queen.
I thought that this whole nonsense about the security was something they've just dreamed up from their own team. If you speak to people in the intelligence services, there is no threat against Harry, and that is why Ravak have not stepped up the security. If there was, the security level would be higher, and he would get an appropriate security as long as he gave them the notice that was required to actually do that review.
New York, cameras everywhere, Prince Harry alone at the time 100 event, no Meghan, no children, just flashes, bright, relentless. The very thing he has said repeatedly brings back painful memories. And yet, There he was, smiling, engaging, responding, not retreating, not shielding himself, but stepping into it. Witnesses heard it. Love it. Life is yours. Outstanding. Perfect. That doesn't sound like discomfort. It doesn't sound like distress. It sounds like someone fully present in the moment, comfortable, even energized by it. And that contrast, it doesn't just raise eyebrows, it raises questions that refuse to go away. Because if the cameras weren't the problem, if the travel went smoothly, if there were no incidents, no threats, no chaos, then what exactly is driving this entire conflict? That's where the story stops being simple. Because now it's not just about security, it's not just about family, it's about narrative, control, timing, and the quiet power of perception. And as the week unfolded with legal defeats, public statements, silence from Buckingham Palace, and carefully timed media releases, the pattern became harder to ignore. Announcements, reversals, emotional framing, strategic absence, and always just enough ambiguity to keep everyone guessing. And just when it seemed like the chaos of that week had already revealed everything, the deeper layers began to surface, layers that didn't just question decisions but exposed patterns that many believe had been quietly building for years beneath the surface. Because the moment you step beyond the headlines and look at what actually unfolded next, the story stops feeling like a series of unfortunate events and starts feeling like something far more structured. The travel happened, the appearances were made. Prince Harry moved through the week, attending events, answering questions, standing in front of cameras, while the narrative surrounding Prince Harry continued to evolve in real time. But what stood out wasn't just what Prince Harry did, it was what didn't happen. There was no meeting with Prince William, despite being in the same country, despite leaving contact details, despite reportedly making it clear that Prince Harry was available. The silence from Prince William remained absolute. And that silence, it didn't just linger, it echoed. Because while People magazine painted one version of events, another publication was quietly reinforcing something far more stark. "It's so broken." That wasn't just a quote. It was a statement that framed the entire relationship in a way that no official response ever confirmed or denied. And then came the subtle difference that only seasoned observers noticed: the wording. One side declined to comment, the other did not respond. Two phrases, nearly identical but not quite. And in that difference, many saw a clue about who was engaging behind the scenes and who was choosing complete distance. Meanwhile, as Prince Harry continued moving through public appearances, another headline emerged that felt almost surreal in its timing. Meghan's Netflix lifestyle series, already confirmed not to continue, received a Daytime Emmy nomination. A moment that should have been celebratory, yet it arrived wrapped in contradiction. Because how does a cancelled show suddenly find itself recognized at that level? Supporters called it validation. Critics called it optics. But either way, it added another layer to a week already overflowing with conflicting signals. And then there was the financial shadow hanging quietly over everything. The courtroom defeat wasn't just symbolic, it carried weight, real weight. Reports suggested the costs could reach into millions of pounds, and when the question of who would cover those costs surfaced, the answer was as sharp as it was final. King Charles would not pay. The message was clear, direct, and impossible to misinterpret. That line, "I'm not a bank," didn't just close a door. It defined a boundary that many believe will shape every decision moving forward. Because from that moment, the story begins to shift again. It's no longer just about family tension or public perception. It becomes about sustainability, private security costs, uncertain commercial futures, deals that once looked limitless now appearing fragile, and suddenly the idea of reconciliation starts to look different. Not softer, but heavier, more urgent, more calculated. Some observers began to question whether the reported meeting carried a different kind of significance entirely, not just emotional, but strategic, because time in this situation isn't neutral. King Charles remains at the center of it all, and what happens during this period may define what is or isn't possible later. And that reality only sharpens when you consider what many believe about Prince William's future approach. A future where support may not exist in the same way, a future where the lines become even more rigid. And then came one of the most unexpected moments of the entire week, a simple question: "What's your occupation?" It should have been straightforward. But the answer that followed didn't settle anything. It complicated everything. Full-time dad, army veteran, Prince of England. And then, uncertainty. That hesitation didn't go unnoticed, because each part of that answer raised its own set of questions, its own contradictions, its own quiet signals about identity, role, and direction. All of this, every interview, every headline, every absence, every carefully placed quote, happened within the same compressed stretch of time, a single week that somehow managed to hold legal defeat, public appearances, media narratives, and personal revelations all at once. And through it all, Buckingham Palace remained almost completely silent. No direct rebuttals, no public counter-narrative, just stillness. But that stillness didn't stop the story. If anything, it made the noise louder. Because while one side spoke through articles, interviews, and unnamed sources, the other said almost nothing, and yet still became the center of multiple narratives released at the exact same time. That contrast didn't resolve anything. It amplified everything. And when you step back and look at the full picture, the announcements, the reversals, the emotional framing, the strategic absences, the financial pressure, the carefully timed recognition, the silence from Prince William, the distance from King Charles, and the ever-present media lens, one pattern becomes impossible to ignore.